Oh yeah, yeah, this is a nice fish. Yeah, this looks like a good one. Right on the seam between on the back eddy and downstream current. So sometimes yeah, that's a nice fish. Now we're talking Columbia River style smallmouth. Yeah, right off. We got a downstream current right here, and then just this nice smooth back eddy. And it's like trout water essentially. And that curls up into that bush up there. And I took them casting up and stripping right on that seam back towards the boat and picked it right up. Get over here close to shore in some calm water.
Nice size fish, yeah, we can get that, whatever.
That was a real nice take right off again. Like I was saying, this downstream little current seam here with a back eddy. Get back over there again. Basically, I'll work a spot until there's no more further action. I mean, sometimes you may only pull one fish out, and sometimes you may pull out a half a dozen. So basically, it doesn't hurt to make more casts in that same general area. And there's a couple different ways you can fish it. You can, like I did, I just kind of creeped up nice and easy and cast upstream and strip back to the boat. Or you can slip in near shore, nice and quiet, drop your anchor, cast into the downstream current, let the fly swing around, and then strip the fly up the upstream into that back eddy and mainstream current seam. Take a few more casts and see if there's anybody else home. That was right at the boat. Yeah, he took it like right underneath the boat. So this fish, again, was cast upstream, stripping back towards the boat, and I was about ready to end the cast and put a little slack, picked up the rod tip, and boom, there he was. And that's the other thing, I like to watch my fly as I'm bringing it towards the boat and not just lift it up in one quick lift. I like to, for the next cast, I'll bring it up and I'll watch it, because fish can come in at the last minute, last second, and grab it. I'm working this kind of steep bank area with rocks and seeing if there's any fish setting up in here in the prime shallows yet. But just because you come in and you don't get any action doesn't necessarily mean there's never any fish here. I always come back and venture into the same spots if the habitat looks good. I like to start my smallmouth fishing right about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's pretty early for fly fishing, and you're going to have to focus on deeper water, probably somewhere between 10 and 20 feet. And as the water warms up, the larger fish will start moving into the shallower areas. By the time you get up to 55 degrees, that's probably the optimal starting time for going after smallmouth bass with a fly. And from 55 to 60, fish will be definitely moving into the shallow areas, probably 4 to 8 feet of water, and looking for spawning beds. And they'll kind of stay in a general area and continue to feed. And then when the spawning temperature gets optimal, then they'll start moving in on nests. Right now, we're at about 58 degrees, which for pre-spawn is, between 55 and 60. That's my most preferred time to go after smallmouth, because a lot of times that's when you're going to get your biggest fish. And during the spawning time, you can pick up some nice fish. Once the fish have spawned, and smallmouth can spawn more than once, and if the weather changes and the climate changes, then you can have different spawning times. So there's not really one set time, in my opinion. You could have fish spawning in May, you could have fish spawning in June, and you could have fish spawning in July. So, you know, basically I follow the temperature patterns. Once you get up to like 65, and you'll know when the fishing starts tapering off, then that's a pretty good indication that the bigger fish are done and they've moved off into deeper water. And to reach the larger fish, you're going to need to use like a type 4, type 5, type 6. Most of those are you know, in a range of 4 to 7 inches per second. I prefer the latter, 7 inches per second. And you know, you can use, I often use shooting heads, because the shooting head system with a 28 to 30 foot head with the monofilament type shooting line is the fastest sinking system than any of the other lines on the market, at least in my experience. So I'll go to fairly large flies, weighted, and a slower presentation, and using my depth finder, I'm going to look for drop-offs, and they go into about 10 to 15 feet of water. I'll focus on 15 feet of water and stay up on top, cast over the top of the break of the bench, and then pull the fly towards the drop-off and then up over the drop-off. And a lot of times when you start to bring that fly up over the top of that drop-off, that's when you're going to get your grab. And you'll be amazed. Fishing can be slow, but you're gonna see hopefully quality fish. Obviously, you're not going to fish a fast sinking line in shallow water, okay? But when you get into the warmer temperatures and you're fishing anywhere from 6 to 12 feet of water, if you get in a spot where there's mainly deep water, I like having 2 fly rods ready to go. One, like I'm using now, with a fast sinking tip, a 20-foot tip on here, and then another rod with a slower sinking line. So if I get into some shoals that are only 3 or 4 feet deep, I can go to my second rod and a lighter fly that's not heavily weighted, so it'll stay more suspended, like a bunny leech pattern or a bugger that doesn't have any weight on it, and fish in these shoal areas. So we're still kind of in deeper water. 15, almost 16 feet deep. So I'm going to let the line sink pretty good before I try not to get too much of a hurry and let that fly get down to where it needs to be. As you can see, there's this rock point comes right off in there, and I always like to cross right across those points, cross over the top of them. I can feel the rock bottom, my fly's bumping a little bit, which is perfect, so I can pick it up a little bit. So I had a cast fairly close, and then I just keep fanning my cast from the shallow water over to the deeper water off that point. And hopefully there's one laying off that point. It looks like we're in about 9 feet of water right now. So up here it's 9, and then back there, like just one boat length away, we were like in 16 feet of water. Basically, I've swept this whole area, starting with that little riffle-like seam over there and the little back eddy, fished off that point on that current seam, and then near the shore, swept around, hit this rock point, and from here, I don't know what the depth over there is yet, but if it's not too shallow, basically I'm just going to continue on with the boat right around to the other side over there and work the shoreline a little bit. And then when it gets really shallow to where I'm snagging up on weeds in the bottom all the time, then change out to a new location. While you're fishing on these drop-offs and near shore, once in a while you want to feel the bottom. One of my favorite patterns is a bugger type pattern, or a pattern where you can put the barbell eyes on that'll turn the hook upright, so then you're not snagging up as much, but you should touch the bottom and keep in check, so to speak, so you know at least you're getting down there and you're in the zone. And as you retrieve your fly away from the shore and there's a gradual drop off, you're going to want to pause to let the fly sink a little more before you start the next strip. So you're going to kind of stair step it, so to speak, as you make a direct cast towards shore and you're fishing back to your vessel. Working the shoreline parallel and staying, well, we're about 9 feet out at the end of the boat, so I'm probably in about 6 feet of water, but I'm fishing parallel along the shore, along the structure, and then I'll cast a little bit deeper, but I'm covering as much of the depth profile as I can. And so if the fish, if the fish is up shallow, I'm there. If the fish is in the deeper water, I'm there. Every once in a while, you want to kind of animate your fly and give it some twitches and then a long pull. Oh, well, I thought that was the bottom, okay? So I kind of got a good feel of that, and I paused a little too long, but at least I found it. Notice also while I'm retrieving this fly that my rod tip is down near the water, and that's important. You don't want to be stripping clear up here. You want to keep your rod tip down near so that when you clamp off on bump or bite, boom, you clamp off, and as soon as you start to raise the rod, you're already pulling that hook home where it needs to be. For today, for example, the water's 58 degrees, and I'm fishing kind of near shore and off a little bit in 8 to 10 feet of water. So far, with the few fish I've caught, some have been in a little of both. So I'm covering both the deeper water and a little bit of shallow water. Now, eventually, it's kind of like as the water warms, then the fish go into shallower water. Once I start to find the majority of the fish at a particular depth, then I'm going to focus on that depth. And then if they start showing in more shallower water, then I can change my line, and I can go to an intermediate sinking line, type 1 or type 2. And then eventually I can go to a floating line with poppers when they're right in close to shore. And what's nice about the floating line and the popper, oh, there we go, fish on. Nice. Okay, so we're in 8 feet of water. That's where I got this fish, right at 8 feet. Nice bass. So that one wasn't close to shore. He was right on that break, and that's where I picked him up. Okay, really nice, thick, pre-spawn fish here. Boy, they're a pretty fish. And that one was in moving water too.